All right, hello everybody, and how are we all doing today? Okay, I've got to turn this down so I don't get feedback here. All right, can you guys hear me okay? Good evening, Sergeant. All right, let's see what we got here. Us, Hermano, Daryl's here, Mark, Barry, Alfred. Good, Alfred, you made it. Steve, Rittenhouse, DeCam. Okay, the gang's all showing up. Okay, audio's good. All right. Before we get cranking today, I thought I would find out what, see if I can put this in a better place. Thought I might find out what you guys were interested in talking about today, because I know some of you guys had some stuff that you had asked me about, and I found a few answers, but I thought we would get going, see what you guys have anything hot on your agendas. But one thing I was asked about was the company Faller, in which if you're in the model trains, you know who they are. Faller is a German company, and I wasn't going to do at first I thought I might do a history on them because they did make some kit plastic models, but then I realized that was kind of a minor sideline for them. They didn't make that many. And in fact, let me see if I believe... Oh, that wasn't it. Did I not include it? Huh. I grabbed a picture of some of their stuff, but I must have failed to... that's something we're going to get to in a little bit. I must have... must not have added it. But Faller is. They're still around. In fact, they're going like gangbusters. Faller is a German company that makes mostly buildings, and they do a lot of amusement park rides and HO scale and other stuff. They did do a sideline of aircraft, but I found one of their catalogs, and they, for a few years, did a line. They did the Dornier 27 little high-wing post-war airplane. Faller itself came about after World War II. They were formed in 46 by a couple of brothers, and it's still making stuff today. Sorry. It never fails. I haven't coughed all day, and now that this starts, for some reason, my body wants to start making me cough. This is ground control to Major Tom. They have a Ludium Q36. One thing I had taken note of was that it appears that companies that got into radio control, cars and planes, model trains, and even slot cars seem to have had a lot more staying power than companies that only got into kit models. Maybe that's because there were fewer of them, but obviously companies like Markland have been around forever making trains, and also I think the threshold's higher whenever you're doing something like model trains or model slot cars. Then you have all the accessories that people have to have, so they have to keep buying. But one of the when you manufacture a kit model, you manufacture the kit model, and there are companies that make accessories, but it's nothing anybody has to have, and you wind up with the ability to buy a kit as the terminal product. Whereas if you're into slot cars or model trains or RCs, there is a ton of stuff, support gear you have to use it, and a lot of that stuff has to get replaced. So you create a market, an ongoing market. Whereas with the kit models, like I say, one and done, and it's not that often that people buy a lot of the same kit too. You have your monogram P51, you have your monogram P51, and there you go. Hey Chris. But there was a lot less rotation and merger with the RC companies, the train companies, and the slot car companies. Of course, as we all know, most of the kit model makers were into slot cars during their heyday. Hey, Adam, glad you made it.
Do you want me to make your coffee?
Por favor, mi amor. I had lunch just before we started this, and I think what's happened is I'm turning into the old man, after lunch, cough for an hour just to... my lovely wife is going to go make me a coffee, and anyway, but Faller is one of those companies that was into kit models for a while as a side business. They were already into plastic injection because they were doing so much for their train stuff, and it's exactly what you would expect from the German engineering. They have a pretty sterling reputation. I went out and looked at some YouTube videos on building their stuff, and they still make new stuff today. I mean, they're not relying on their old stuff. I have never built a kit by Faller. Their airplanes look pretty straightforward. In fact, while I'm talking to you, I'm going to see if I can find that picture I put together of the... I found one of their old magazines, their advertisements. Okay. Let's see. And they make quite a bit of stuff. They're particularly well known for their buildings, I think. That seems to be their mainstay. Although it looks like they make just about everything that you can make for. Here it is. Got it. My mouse is acting up. Okay, let's fit that to the screen. Okay, here we go. Oh, thank you, baby. That was a problem being cursed because I didn't have my number one prop here with me. Now, this model you see spread out on the bottom is something that was for sale on Worth Point. That was their Convair 440 Metropolitan, and it's a pretty straightforward kit, probably on par with a Hawk kit. And you can see the stuff up here. Okay, every time I move this thing, there we go. You can, oh, okay, yeah, and you can see they made the Choctaw helicopter and your usual array of World War II airplanes and stuff. They did a couple airliners, and pretty straightforward stuff, but good quality. And yeah, they did. It looks like they did a blitz, the Vanguard, and well, I'll tell you what. Let me just see if I can just zoom in on this, and let's get a look at the. Okay, that's not zooming. There we go. What is that, a York or something? They did a couple of the missiles, but that's either Viscount or a Vanguard. But, well, you know what? Hold on, let's just go. This thing allows you to zoom in at some place. Preview scaling? That's interesting. Oh well. Anyway, point is that they're still going strong, and they have no I mean, they're going to be around longer than any of us are. They've lasted. They're going to 80 something years now, and because they're largely into railroads, which still has a huge following. They're well, is that a tri-motor? Probably. Let me put it back up there for you. Let's see what we got. You got the Choctaw up here in the upper right. That's the helicopter. Metropolitan next to it. A couple of general aviation aircraft. A V2 missile, a Matador. On the right, this is the Dornier 27 I was talking about. That was a German high-wing aircraft. And they seem to have a thing for British airliners. They did the Convair, but they also did these two. I think that's a York, and it's yes, that is a Junkers tri-motor, and then a couple of military aircraft, a Wright Flyer. That's interesting. Showing there's another Junkers up here. That's in the Lufthansa markings. Then your standard Messerschmitt, Stuka, Fiesler Stork. There's the Dornier again, the 27. Appears down here, Ju-88, and of course F-104, or as the Germans called it, the Landart. No, the Germans never called the F-104 the Landart. That's what we called the F-16 when it first came out, the electric Landart. I imagine we're all old enough to remember Landarts. What did they do over here? Was that a F-84? Me-262, yeah. I don't know that that's all that they made, but they were never really known for their model aircraft. They were still always known for their railroad-related stuff. Apparently, and I'm reading between the lines here, they did well enough that the company Marklin decided to get into business. But I think they made their models out of metal because it seemed like they screwed together. They're kind of rare, but I don't think they're quite as popular. Anywho. So for you guys that were asking about Faller, that's about all I could dig up on them. They have an extremely brief company history on their board, and it's it says the two brothers started in '46 in Stuttgart, outgrew their house, started a factory, and that's about it for their history. But they've been going nonstop ever since. I'm just reading the comments here. Flying Coffin F-104, yeah. Well, I got to tell you about the F-104 in Germany. You guys, I don't know if you're familiar with the whole Lockheed scandal. Today, what qualifies as contractor fraud used to be just the way business was done. In fact, if you see the movie The Aviator about Howard Hughes, when they haul him before Congress and aren't you whining and dining officers? He goes, that's just how business is conducted. And back then, it wasn't actually against the law, but the law has changed. I know some folks that have Marklins, and Sergeant Stephen is talking about Marklin, and I have to tell you, Marklin, I've seen them. I've never actually owned one, but I know that they have a pretty strong following. Oh, one thing about the, and I don't know if it has to do anything with the railroad, because almost all their aircraft are 1 to 100 scale, and they were doing this before it was a popular thing. I think before to me or anybody did it. Now, of course, that's not HO scale, but it's close enough for most people. I don't know what scale the Marklin trains were in. I do know that I think one of the reasons, you guys correct me if you think I'm wrong making this analogy, but to me, Marklin seems like the European Lionel. Lionel and Marklin both kind of doing their own thing away from what everybody else was doing, and I don't know if they came in line with others or others came in line with them. But they both built some pretty strong followings. And the coffee's helping. Marklin it is HO. Okay, all right. I never quite understood. O scale is supposed to be 148, and HO is supposed to stand for half O, which, if my math is correct, should be 1 to 96, but it's actually 1 to 87. So I never quite. I've had model train layouts, but I've never gotten into it the way some guys have. Oh, that's right. I forgot. European has O and double O scale. That's right. They have the 1 to 86. Yeah, this is where you get into these subtle differences, and it can get confusing. Daryl Alfred's still trying to get up with you. I also work as an interchange between people. If you guys want to get hooked up, want me to somebody else there, tell me who it is. Send me an email. I will forward it to them, and if they want to contact you, they can. I never give out anybody. Obviously, I never give out anybody's information, but I will forward something. I don't think anybody here would really mind, but it's just a courtesy thing. And Rocco. I started looking into Rocco, and that went down a rabbit hole real fast because Rocco is in its own world. I almost wound up buying some stuff also. Rocco makes some really cool stuff, and in a way they're kind of like Faller in that regard. But whereas Faller makes mostly structures, Rocco makes mostly vehicles, and of course that's by no means exclusive. That's just what they're popular for, and they're going to be surprisingly expensive. But I wanted. Before I did this diorama, I had thought that I'm working on now, which we're going to talk about in a while. I thought about another diorama based on a gag picture that I made, Johnny Quest versus Godzilla. And I was thinking, actually, out in the desert, that would be pretty cool. And I cobbled together this silly picture. Anyway, I was thinking, I wonder what it would take. And I realized how many missiles and rockets and bombs I had in my spares drawer. And I thought, if I glue these together, I could invent some vehicles and make the diorama look like the desert, and put the big Polar Lights 141 to 144 scale Godzilla 16-inch one down at one end, and everything backed up at the other, and do long range photography and have it. It's just I still have the imagination of a 6-year-old. Marklin is the most common model train company that isn't the specialized Swedish ones. Okay, there you go. See, this is, we're out of my wheelhouse. You guys know way more about this than I do. But I still find it fascinating. One thing I find fascinating is that companies like Marklin and Rocco, well, I can sort of understand Rocco, but they have, and even Lionel, they still have some pretty militant followings, and not all people our age. Some, there's some young folks that are really into it. 00 is 1 to 76. Yes. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I'm doing this off the top of my head. Italeri, Italeri, the Italeri did a lot. Italeri did a lot of 1 to 76 scale stuff because they specifically wanted people to be able to use it with the 00 scale stuff. And apparently, when 176 was a popular scale, 00 was the easiest gauge of model trains to find stuff for because a lot of people made 176. And that I believe is the reason you see so much 176 stuff in the older kits. Obviously not so popular today. 172 is taken over. And so on the European 143, actual translation of gauge of the real world. That makes sense. Went to Ollie's. They have the Stagecoach. Union Cannon and $30? Man, you should grab those. Those things go $100 on eBay. I'm halfway inclined to have Chris pick one of those off for me, but I got no place to put it, and I've got too many projects going right now. By the way, I'm going to switch gears over that Stagecoach for a minute. I talked about this before. Apparently, the reason it was not the harnesses and parts that it was missing are missing out of a lot of the kits. Now, they may have since fixed that, but apparently there was I don't know, it was just a batch of them, or if it was an ongoing problem for a while, that somebody in the factory was not throwing in a second sprue that had all the collars and everything, and that's why I had to fabricate them out of leather and plastic and rubber. But unfortunately, everything was black on black, so it hid the sins. But I'm curious if they ever fixed that problem, because some people actually said, if you're going to buy one, just get two so you have all your parts. Now, that's the Lindbergh Stagecoach, which used to be Marks. And people didn't forget Marks used to make kit models. Stagecoach, like I say, 1955, that was a $100,000 mold. It's almost $900,000 today. They must have had some serious confidence. And but they did. And and I tell you, speaking DeCam, you're talking about 176 is the armor scale. I brought my little 148 scale Patton here with me, and this is the little kit that Atlantis repops. And I have to tell you, I think this thing was $18, and I was at Hobby Lobby, so I got 40% off, so I probably paid $10. Like any old kit, you have your flash on it, you have to scrape up, no big deal. In a way, that's almost nostalgic. Reminds me of building the kits as a kid. But except for these rubber band tracks are kind of hard to get to bond. I know a lot of you guys talk about melting them together, or melting the flange on, putting when you mate the end, melting the end to make it spread out, rivet out, like bucking a rivet, and that may work. But and you got to bore out the tip of the barrel. But I have to tell you, I really don't have any complaints about this kit. It's a nice, straightforward, easy to build kit. Oop, track tension. And I'm perfectly happy with it. And another repro kit, which this will be towards the end of the story there. Another one that I was real happy with was this repro H19, and had no problems putting this together. It makes maybe it's not Tamiya quality, but it has. I didn't put the engine with the doors and everything on it, but you can have the swing out doors. I didn't really need them. The fit of the glass is a little old school, but you sort of expect that. But still, it's the door. Unfortunately, the side door doesn't open. There's no internal detail. But if you're any kind of kit basher, that would be an easy thing to take care of. And by the way, some of you guys had noticed that the rotor, I did put some rotor bow in there, so the rotor sag. Even I was starting to realize those rotors were sticking up a little bit, but it's really high quality plastic too. But there is one thing. I have a picture, but maybe the desk cam can pick it up. If you guys can see those little speckles on there, little spots, little tiny ones, okay, there's a little story behind that. In fact, if you look on the picture of the diorama that's right in front of you, you can see that the road is made out of that spray paint that has the gravel built into it. And in fact, maybe this picture there, now you can see the road, the texture in the road, not the grass, that's model railroad stuff, but the texture on the road that the car is abandoned on is that gravel kind of spray paint. And now you'll notice in the first picture is totally unretouched. This one has a little bit of retouchment to it, not much. I'm gonna have to retake that photo, it's all too blurry. But anyway, the reason I point that out is that I had a little thing I had to spray paint with it, with the last little bit of paint that was left. This helicopter was 4 feet away to the side, and I went ch-ch-ch-ch-ch. But apparently the little tiny rock particles they put in the paint, they're much heavier than the paint itself, and they bounce a long way, and they speckled the helicopter from about 3.5, 4 feet away. And I managed to pick most of them off, but a couple of them were a little embedded because they're sticky. So if you use that spray paint that had like the gravel or the rock that has the texture built into it, just beware that stuff will, the little rock parts will go a long way. So, I didn't think I needed to put a shield up or a cover, but apparently I did. So, note to self, lesson learned. Read a couple of comments here. The Ideal Toy Company. Yeah, some of Ideal's kits are still being made by Glencoe. One of their ships, I forget it's the France or the America, was Ideal. And 2 or 3 of Glencoe's catalog were former Ideal. A whole bunch of them were ITC. And that's Andy Anchus. I had just made an addendum because people wanted to see more of the Glencoe kits, and I just made an addendum and put it up, and it was probably posted 1 minute when I got an email from Andy saying, don't post it. I have a bunch of their stuff. I can scan you. So I was like, okay. So I pulled it down, and he sent me those beautiful scans that I used in the Glencoe addendum. So thanks to Andy for that. And yeah, Chris, that's what that stuff is really intended for. I think is for like flower pots and things. And but man, it's a nice, quick and dirty way to make a gravel road too. If you're doing a diorama or something, just make bloody sure you have it all taped off and everything. But it's a great way to make a gravel parking lot or something. And it's so tiny, it pretty much works with any scale. And so I was going to show you guys a little something here. Now, this is just one photograph that I grabbed at random that I thought would be a good one to show you. This is a raw photograph of this helicopter against the green screen, and it's actually hovering above the board, but for this particular angle, I didn't. Hey, Mark, glad you could make it. Now, here's just the raw photograph. Now, there's a lot of things I have to do to it to make it work, and the first step is, of course, chroma key it. And now these I did just before coming on the live stream. I mean, literally like 5 minutes before, so they haven't been retouched. I haven't. The ones that'll be used will look better than this, but then the next thing to do, of course, is to desaturate it, make it look like an older photograph, and then erase the whoops, that was me, and then erase the wires. And there's a lot of ways to do that, but so that's kind of what the photography will look like in the diorama video. And I have to do this kind of stuff with every single photograph. Now, this will also have to be tweaked a little bit more. I'll have to blur the rotors or something, and there are a couple of ways to do that. But it takes, you have to create a mask and everything. It takes some time. So even once I get all the photography done, I still have a ton of work to do in the big electric box to make the stuff work. Thanks, Chris. Since this whole thing, Mark, to answer your question, since this whole thing is kind of loosely patterned after the 53 War of the Worlds, I've decided to put it in the mountains east of Los Angeles, between Los Angeles and Vegas. In fact, the story sort of reads that the people are fleeing LA up into the mountains, but they can't go to the other side of the mountains because, like, was it Palm Springs, the thing on the other side is, under attack too. So they're kind of sandwiched in the middle. So that kind of explains why the whole thing takes place in one place. In fact, those mountains are just something I grabbed at random. I need to actually get some, because I know a lot of you guys are familiar with the mountains out west. I want to get the Sierra Madres or the correct mountain range. I guess kind of inspired by, but not necessarily in the Cajon Pass. How many hours did you have on the Midway series? Oh, dear God, that took 8 months to do. That and Godzilla versus the Wehrmacht were both 8-month projects, but they were also done very, very part-time. Actually, the slowest part of the Midway project was reading all the books and constantly collating all the data. And if it hadn't been for Tully and Parshall's book, Anthony Tully and Jonathan Parshall's book, Shattered Sword, I probably couldn't have put it all together. But they had some really great timelines in the back of the book that helped it out. The problem with something like the Midway series is there were so many things that were happening at the same time. And no one ever talks about that poor Catalina that went out and got shot down. It's just one of those forgotten battles, or what the PT boats did. There were 3 PT boats there that were, mostly fishing guys out of the water, but nobody ever talks about when the Marines shot at our own aircraft that had Navy aircraft that had diverted from the flight to nowhere. And trying to cover all that, because at the same time they're landing at Midway, the other planes are landing on the Hornet with their bombs still attached. Oh man, I can only imagine what was going through Mitcher's mind when that happened. But that's, San Bernardino, that's right. And my brother was actually based at Norton, so I have to get the right mountains or everything. I'll never hear the end of it. I've more or less decided that it's taking place in 1959. Even though it's just a diorama, you want to avoid anachronisms. And some of the infantry have M60s and M14s. Well, the M60 machine gun came into service in 57 and the M14 in 59. So since only a few of the soldiers have M14s, I figure, well, if it's 59, then I can justify all the equipment. What's really interesting is the Banshee that I'm using, the jet. I thought, well, maybe it was too old, but it didn't go out of service until 61. Now, what shocked me was this I didn't see coming. The Banshee stayed in the service until 1961, but the Panther, which is a much better known airplane, was actually out of Navy inventory by 59, had a shorter service life. Now, yes, it was replaced by the Cougar, but in fact, they were both F9s, I think. But I just found that interesting that the earlier generation, slightly less famous, somewhat less famous airplane actually managed to stay in the inventory a little bit longer. Yeah, such are the vagaries of military procurement. Well, pursuit, don't worry about it. I mean, before I started using my new camera, I was doing some of my morning coffees most of them on my phone and just hitting upload straight from the phone with no editing at all. So those are, hey Gary, it all depends on what you're trying to do. I mean, at first I started taking it very seriously, but I realized I lacked both the computing power, and the production skills to make these professional videos. And I see these guys, these YouTubers that do these just incredibly professional videos, and a lot of them are still essentially one-man operations, like Lance Geiger, who you probably know as the history guy. As far as I know, he's pretty much a one-man show, but he's got some beautiful animations. I don't know if they're something prefabricated or he hired someone to do them for him. My logos and stuff were made by my niece, who's a graphic designer, and I wanted to Alfred. Thanks for asking about that. I want to tell you, I'm not able to use the camera for the stream. Apparently, and I did not realize this, camcorders are terrible for live streams. Most of them will not operate with a computer directly. You have to have, there's some kind of gizmo you got to buy that sets them up to run through a computer, which can cost more than the camera, and they're not made for it. Everybody's like, if you're going to do live streams, just use you buy a webcam. They're cheaper, and that's what they're made for. It's completely different protocols. When I plug mine in, the computer didn't even see it. Either use the HDMI cable or the USB, the universal serial bus. And I chatted with a friend of mine who's a professional techie, and we were talking about this morning. And I didn't realize this, and I have a background in computers, but when you plug a USB in, a whole bunch of things happen in the background. And one of the things that happens is identification. And if the computer doesn't recognize, and camcorders are not set up for this, the reason they have plugs is usually so you can just firewire internal memory into the computer. Now, if you have software set up for it, and it's set up for the FireWire, then yes, you can do it. But cameras shoot very high def. The whole live stream thing isn't really set up to do that. But he's like, when you plug a USB in, if it doesn't recognize the type or the codec or something, if they can't talk to each other, you get nothing. And camcorders are normally not set up for that. Whereas webcams are. Used to make 8mm a weekend, zombie vampire. Oh, I made movies as a kid too. I and some of them are pretty ambitious. I'm out there with my whole 148 scale Air Force on wires, and I tried to make a Star Wars movie. I actually cut up a MiG-21 and made a spaceship, enemy fighter out of it, and took an X-wing, and it was actually the Estes X-wing that had the extra fins on it, and I wrote plots. It didn't have any sound, but good Lord, you could always find me down in the basement, dangling a model on strings with a flashlight on it, with a cardboard mask on or something. And yeah, I'm pretty much making stuff into if I wasn't doing what I'm doing for a living, if somebody's like, what's your dream job outside of flying for a living, I'd probably want to be making stuff in Hollywood for movies. But that, sadly, until The Mandalorian came along anyway, was largely a dying profession. Fortunately, they're starting to get back towards it. They're starting to realize the advantages of it. Which, by the way, if you guys didn't know, Hasbro is putting out the Razor Crest. It's not a kit, but it's a big, super high fidelity toy that's supposed to go for $350 once they get them out. I'm going to give them a while because you got people trying to get you to pre-order for $1,000. But apparently it comes with Mando and a Baby Yoda to go in it. So I'm pretty sure I know it's going to be on my shopping list when those things finally start getting delivered. I think it's about yay so big, I believe. Pictures look pretty impressive. I mean, personally, I'd rather build a kit, but hey, if it's high fidelity enough, I'm not above buying some. There's some companies that put out some pretty incredible, we call them toys, and I guess they are toys, but they're still pretty incredible reproductions of stuff. Yeah, Modeler X. As they say, the right tool for the right job, and but when I was, and I know this sounds silly, but when I was getting my degree in management information systems, which is half business and half computers, I know this sounds so cliche, and we're only going back to 1990, but it really was simpler back then, and it was very complicated back then. But it was a lot simpler. But today, what we've gotten used to in the meantime is everything being plug and play. But when you have something that's as optimized for a purpose as a camcorder, and then something that's as optimized for a purpose as a webcam, we tend to have they're the same thing. Well, no, they're not at all. That's like comparing a pickup truck to a sports car. They both have four wheels and go, but they're very different machines. Yeah, that brings up something I was going to talk about and I think I touched on it last week a little bit. A lot of folks are talking about the 3D resin stuff. Now, my understanding is that most of the 3D mediums that are used right now, whereas they can make highly detailed stuff, they can be very difficult to modify. Apparently, a lot of times you try to drill holes, they break. If you can get what you want, that's fine. But when you try to modify it is where you start running into problems. And that's one of the things that has kept plastic models in business, is the fact that plastic is very malleable. You can do a great deal with it. And if you screw it up, you can patch it pretty easy. And my understanding was resin, that's not so easy. Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's the H19 S55. I was showing the kit earlier. It's right here. And it's really just a really decent little kit. By the way, it does not come with any glass for the windows down here. Not that matters, but I mean, if you wanted, you easily put a piece of plastic in there. But it comes in the Air Force markings. These Army decals I got off of a spare sheet, and which fortunately happened to be pretty much just about right. Actually, it wasn't a spare sheet. I stand corrected. I had bought aftermarket decals for an H19 S55, but they were 1/72nd scale. But when I looked at the actual photographs of the real helicopter, they might have been made a little bit too big, because on a 1/72nd scale helicopter, because of the photo, contrary to a lot of us think, military markings are often not always uniform. You'll go to one base and you'll see markings that are bigger than at another base. It's not such a big deal now. Nowadays, everything's pretty uniform. But back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, where a lot of times the stuff was just marked up locally, I've seen some pretty interesting markings. Especially when you start doing National Guard units. And it's sometimes they have the older style and everything, and it's just, it can get interesting. Like I say, not much of a situation these days. Everything's pretty uniform. But back before the days of the internet and the interweb, it's like on an aircraft carrier. A bunch of guys I know who were in the Navy were telling me that, back in the 50s and 60s, captain of an aircraft carrier was God. He was a king afloat, and what he said was that was law, and that was the end of it. And of course now it's much more centralized. But oh, how does the green screen work with a green model? Horribly. Now this one, let's take a quick look here. The reason this works okay is because the greens have so much contrast. The reflections are actually more of a problem. If you look, the reflection is actually more of a problem. But when you scale the green screen, you have your saturation and everything. And but what's really, 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 really important when you're green screening, chroma keying a picture. Because, for example, if you look at the green, I use green thread. But look at this photo. Even though it's chroma keyed, you can still see the threads. All right, because they're brighter than the background. So it's easier to digitally erase those than it is to try and actually get the chroma key to match. Now, one of the problems I did have that I had talked about was the red trucks that I'm using, the mobile gas trucks. I couldn't use green on the end of the. Let me just show you a picture. Let's grab one real quick here. Image. Okay. Browse. Let's see. Let me look for. Give me just a second here to find scale models. Exodus. Let's go block 1. Ah, perfect. Oh, this is perfect. Okay. Okay. Now let me just make that fit to transform, fit to screen. All right. Now, let me just put my lovely face on top here real quick. And move myself over. Okay. Now, the trees over here on the right were disappearing along with the green screen that I had back there. So I used red. Problem was then the trucks disappeared. So I have to be careful. So this photo would be cropped down. The trucks would probably be cropped out of it, the gas trucks. But the green screen wasn't going to work back there because the green was too close to the green here. And about 60% of the trees were disappearing. And also I had problems with the uniforms. Sometimes it disappeared too. So I'd have to overlay 2 photos, crop one, and then only green screen the top half. And it started becoming more work than it was worth. It was easier just to put a red background. All I had to do was move the trucks around. So that is, you have to be careful about color matching. In fact, one problem you run into, one of the hardest things for me to chroma key, because the popular colors for chroma key are blue and green. They like to use green with people because there is no green in the human complexion, so you can chroma key people with a green. That's why they use green screen so much. But blue screen works really well for machinery, as long as the machinery is not blue, of course. Now, another color that's fairly popular when you have blues and greens together is use red. You can't use black and you can't use white, and you shouldn't try to use gray because those are primary colors that's not going to work. You just can't make them go away. Pretty much any other color you can use. One of the things I had trouble green screening was Japanese Zeros from the aircraft carrier Hiryu. And the reason is that the airplanes were green, even though it was that light Imperial Japanese Navy green. The Japanese roundels were red, and the Hiryu has blue cigar band stripes for marking the aircraft. So I had to I forget what color I did use. And a lot of them have yellow markings on the tail. It's like I had to come up like purple or something to chroma key it. And then I wound up, you know what? I'm just going to put the model up against a blue sky and shoot that. And that's what I did, and didn't even chroma key it. I just shot it just cropped off the bottom so you couldn't see the stick underneath. It had an electric motor in it, so you could actually see the prop spinning. It actually worked better than some of the Chroma King, too. You're not supposed to be agreeing with healthy human beings. I suppose if you caught someone that was seasick, there might be a little bit of green in there. I just realized that, well, this crappy camera view, this would have been a good place to put the model so you could see it while I'm talking. There we go. Tankety, tankety, tank. By the way, for sound effects, I think it was John Kitt turned me on to a place called Zapsplat. They have a lot of stuff you can buy, but they have a lot of stuff for free. And they have some really good sound effects. So if you guys need sound effects, Zapsplat. I'm not trying to hawk anybody's product. If I find something that works, I like to spread the word. And let's see if I can put the helicopter here too. Just try to get in camera view. I mean, got the models, might as well try to show them off. Anyway, Kermit would be in stealth mode on a green screen. Hey, John, glad you made it. Arsenio until 63. Apparently it was a nice little plane, a little underpowered, but did the job. People didn't forget how much they were used in Korea. There's a one of the things I found interesting was some equipment has an incredibly long, short military service life, and some has an incredibly short military service life. But when you look at airplanes, today, if you don't get 30 or 40 years out of modern aircraft, partly because they're so expensive, it's considered a bad investment. But you look back in the 50s and 60s, there are a lot of aircraft that had less than a 10-year service life that were god-awful, except the B-36. Now, of course, a lot of this has to do with the pace of technology. I mean, things were just changing so fast back then. The Panther, the B-36, the B-58 Hustler, the Cutlass had about a 2-year service life. That's actually where I was going. I was talking about aircraft carriers were, Lord and High Master on their ship if you were the captain of a carrier. And apparently, the way one article I read out of the Air and Space magazine. Oh, by the way, from Spaceland, if they happen to check in, I got the magazines from the UK yesterday. Thank you very much. I'm still looking to go through those. It's been my experience that normally British flying magazines and model magazines are just top shelf. They're just the magazines on aviation and armor and model building that come out of the UK are just usually super. And I'm not knocking fine scale modeler, but the one American production that keeps pace, or maybe even better, probably in my opinion the best publication if you're an aviation buff, is Smithsonian's Air and Space magazine. And they did a really good article on the old Cutlass, or as some guys used to call it, the Gutless, which I think was only in the Navy 2 years before it went to Reserve Squadron. And the name of the article is There Was Never Nothing Wrong With It. Those things were always broken. Super complex, really pushing a bunch of technologies. Cool looking airplane. Looks like you could park a Cutlass on the set of Star Wars and it would look like it belonged there. But apparently on one cruise, they had such a high accident rate that when they got near Spain or Italy or somewhere, the captain of the ship said, "Get every one of those damn airplanes off my ship." And they flew to the Aviano or wherever, or some Navy base, Cadiz. And he just finished the rest of the tour with whatever assets he had left. It was that bad. If they had it, of course, it's candy and nuts, right? Or ifs and buts were candy and nuts. But the thing about the Cutlass was the airframe was ahead of the airframe was ahead of the engine technology of the day, and that was its real problem. It suffered from bad engines. A lot of aircraft that was the case. The old one, Mike Mashat over on his channel, Celebrating Aviation, Mike Mashat, he just went over 3 beautiful display models that he has, and I recommend you go view it. It's a great video. He just put it up on Celebrating Aviation with Mike Mashat. He had the XF was a 92, the Delta Wing thing, the XF 91 Thunderceptor, and the Lockheed XF 90, if I'm right. And The 90, that thing, the F-90 really looked the part of, it looked way ahead of its time. I think it came out 47 or 48, and it looked like a Century Series airplane. And but it was heavy and slow and underpowered. And again, it was another airplane that was let down by its engines. The airframe itself had a lot of potential. And a lot of airplanes that era, that was the problem. And including some of the airliners. And yeah, the Demon was another one. Actually, there's a guy here in Jacksonville, because we have a lot of Navy guys here. The Demon, he was talking about he was an electrician. He looked at it, how hard it was to access everything. They always had to do work on it. And although it was underpowered, it also suffered from that same problem of being, technologically, they were just trying to do too much with primitive technology, so they were always having electronic problems with it. But when it did work, it was, okay, not great. Hard to believe that the Demon was progenitor of the Phantom, but again, they're working with what they had, and they were just trying to squeeze every last drop out of it. The Cutlass, if you could have put some decent engines in that airplane, you might have had something, but still like was an 11-foot tall nose gear, because they had to come in so nose high, so it definitely needed more flaps and slats. But if you rolled out a project like that to the modern military, they would take you behind the hangar and just beat the snot out of you. Modern ammo is non-corrosive, so it's interesting. It's also easier on the gun. I have an old 30-06 from World War I, an Eddystone P17, which is the American Enfield. I did a video on it on the Fun with Guns channel, and I had to be careful because I got some ammo on it to make sure it wasn't corrosive, because we used to have this old Berdan Prime corrosive ammo. Corrosive ammo is often cheap and it works okay, but my God, when you're done, you have got to clean the crap out of your gun. Literally. Just a little bit of that stuff. It's, and I can understand why the non-corrosive stuff is less easier to store without less problem. And they said if you don't know if it's corrosive or not, what you do is you take a spent casing and you put it over a nail upside down for a day or two and come back and look, and the nail's rusted, it's corrosive. And there are a couple of videos about doing that. Oh, Max, it's funny you should mention that. Our son Eduardo, a huge guitar player, and it's tough for him because he's left-handed, so it's hard. But he had us get one of I forget the name of it. Start with a V. He had us get one of those real nice tube amps. My first amp was a tube PV amp, and you had to wait for it to warm up before you could use it. But you're absolutely right. Tube amps make the sweetest sound. That's one reason Hendrix used a stack of Marshalls, and he could get a lot of feedback. But no, I completely agree. I love tube amps. I mean, of course, you sit playing on stage, you feel the heat coming off of them. But they stayed with tubes longer than they had to for some military hardware because they were afraid of the EMP. Once we realized that, hey, you can think, was it Operation Starfish or whatever it was, where they shot the V1 up into space and set a nuke off, and it blew out lights in Hawaii. Now that would it's all, this is your weapon, this is your gun, this one's for shooting, and this one's for fun. Yeah, I remember that. Oh God, the javelin looks slow. Gloucester Javelin is the only jet I know that when I look at it, I think of the Hawker Hurricane. When I love the Hawker Hurricane with that big fat wing, it's like, it looks like a Hawker Hurricane. Oh, do they, Charles? I didn't realize subs still use tubes, but it doesn't surprise me. What works. One of the things it's like when if you record something digitally or analog. Digital will keep its perfection all the time, but digital can only move in ones and zeros. Their increments can move, whereas analog, the sine wave and everything can be completely smooth, so you can still get better sound. There's a recording guy who runs a studio. Oh gosh, Eduardo loves this guy. Albini, I think's his name, and he does all of his stuff in his studio. Musicians from around the world come to, I think it's Steve Albini, come to his studio because he does everything analog, and they just get a sweeter sound that way. And It wouldn't surprise me, Adam, because the Russians have been into tubes for a long time. When I was in the Army in the 80s, and 70s and 80s, we used to joke that the Russians still use tubes. And then somebody pointed out, yeah, they do that because they're more resistant to EMP. And we had to shield the crap out of everything because everything was, when I was in, they were just in the process of going digital. And they had to shield the crap out of everything to protect it from EMP, electromagnetic pulse. And, I imagine most of it all. Oh yeah, this is Silos. They did a documentary a while back. They went in and the guys in the silos still use these big 5-inch floppy drives, and apparently the reason they kept doing it was just this system works. There was no need to change it. Right? It was just stay with what works. But over time, as hacking became an issue, they realized that this old technology was completely unhackable, and it's funny. Oh gosh, they made a movie a while back with Johnny Depp called Transcendence, where his consciousness goes into a supercomputer and he's able to manipulate just everything, kind of a Skynet sort of thing. So when they go after to destroy him, they're driving old diesel powered deuce and a halves carrying 105 howitzers, the crank handles on them to fight back because they can't be hacked. There's no electronics on them. But anyway, oh yeah, Jimi Hendrix, man. Supposedly because he flipped his Stratocaster upside down and restrung it, some people claim he could get a tonality out of it that you couldn't get out of the others. I'm not sure I buy that, but one of a kind, definitely the original. It's funny you should mention that. You talking about the Olds 442, William? I was just talking about that car yesterday when I did my line check. The guy I did the training and the line check with, or the whatever we call it, brush up flight and line check. It was 2 legs out and back, Punta Cana and back out at San Juan, which, although short, is extremely busy. He's a huge car guy, enormous, and he still has all of his models from when he's a kid. It's like, if you want to get rid of me, and then I realized he'd already built them. I thought, but he's one of the few people I know that still have all of his models from his childhood, which I think is a wonderful thing. Anyway, we were talking about the 442 because, actually, we were talking about the GTOs and the Impalas, and then that went to the 442, and I've seen some of the old 440s and 442, and I just think those cars are awesome. Finally, they got a little bit of love in that movie with Sylvester Stallone, Demolition Man. Was it 1974 442? They go chasing after the bad guy but supposedly you can hack a modern car. So that's my understanding. I mean, you could probably hack an Airbus, and I'll just go fly an old Dakota or DC-4. If you want to hack this thing, you're going to need a saw. Okay, I suppose Trebleton, that could make a difference. So anyway, looping back to the models, I've found a couple of really good articles on bill topping. Now I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with. Oh my gosh, I had a chance to buy a friend's Tornado, and I didn't because I have no place to put it. He finally sold it. It's the one that had that rotary speedometer. It's like a drum that rotates with the speed on it. A Hearst 442 was your driver's ed car? You've got to be kidding. Oh my God. Why not just give a 16-year-old a Corvette? Ed, I'm not allowed to say whether I promised on my, that I wouldn't talk about that. So, I can't mention that. I can't mention that it was just a bundle deal and they didn't have a choice in the matter because I promised I wouldn't. So, they don't even know what they have yet. Nobody saw me. You can't prove a thing. I want a Red Ryder BB gun. I'm just reading some of the comments about what people want for Christmas. A 125 scale kit of an original Tornado. How is it when it's at your house, it's a Tornado? When it's a car, it's a Tornado? Or a jet, it's a Tornado? Or do they call the jet the Tornado? I actually don't know. I think I did see some Japanese ground crew Or is that just a Mandela effect? I think I saw it because somebody's mentioning it. Well, when I build that Polara that was gifted to me, thank you once again, I'm going to build the Hemi outside of the car so that I can display it. And when I build the pickup truck, I got that Revell pickup truck, oh gosh, what was it, 63? I'm going to put the engine in the trunk because I don't like to pose the model with the hood open, and I keep them behind glass. So I figure that way you can see them. I put all that work in the motor and then slam the hood on, you can't even see it. There we go. Johan. I've got to go buy a Johan kit and build it just because I've never built one, and everybody raves about them. Jet, I believe, is tomato or tornado. Hey, it might be time for new ones. There are a couple of companies out there that are have come into a ton of molds, and some of them are destroyed, and some of them are too far gone. But some of them, you see, the thing is, even once they have the molds, you don't just put these models back in production. There's still a commitment to be involved. And I don't just mean the boxes and the art and the instructions, and there's that. But there's just, it's an investment, and you want to pick what you know is going to sell. And part of me just wants to go, well, I'll tell you what, the ones you don't want we'll take, and we'll just find some plastic shooter that can make 1,000 of each for us and just throw them in bags and see who wants to buy them. But that would be something you would do for the love of it, not for because you would not make any money at it. And look, when someone like Peter Jackson, who's in the 3 Comma Club, billionaire, gets out of the kit model business, that tells you something. I was pretty surprised. I'm inclined to think that the whole Corona thing was just an excuse for him to get out of it. Because as soon as that happened, he was out of the business. And I mean, that happened awfully quick. I'm inclined to think maybe he was looking to get out of it. And but I don't know. That's just my humble opinion. Let's see. Move me over here out of the way so you can enjoy the beautiful photography. So let's see. Yeah, well, that's like me. I'd like to do a series of 148 scale general aviation aircraft, or even 132nd scale, but I think 148 would be more popular. Aeronca Champ, Luscombe, Taylor Craft, Cessnas. Well, there are some Cessnas made, but there's a lot of them that aren't. Navajo, the 421, Cessna 421. But again, it would be a pretty limited market. For some reason, civilian aircraft just don't seem to be as popular. I don't know how to think as the military stuff. So there's that. But I'll bet you could make a line of family cars in 125 scale that would probably be surprisingly popular. Not because they're anything particularly cool about them, but because a lot of people relate to them. Oh, my mom had one of those, or my dad had one of those, or I remember that, a flatbed truck, a stake body. There's just all kinds of, stuff that I think there is a demand for. If no other reason, people just feel like making something different. I understand why they customize the Tom Daniel designs and that sort of stuff. I totally understand why they were so insanely popular. IMC Learjet, yeah. And, Aurora didn't make their Learjet. They just made the pattern. I would love to see one of these patterns. Just the actual pattern itself, because I assume they're made out of wood, but I don't know. But when you think that the model has to be made off the pattern, and a mold has to be made from the pattern that the plastic has to make, the level of precision and detail has got to be insane. Those are some mad skills. And Andy was telling me that they just put them together with rubber cement. And I'm thinking, well, it's rubber cement, that's probably wood, because that can be plucked apart, but it adheres to wood well. But 132nd scale Draken. 132nd scale series of jets would be interesting. I know a lot of them are made. The problem you run into is you run out of space real quick, because some of those things get pretty big. But, yeah, Rob, I like plain Jane cars, too. I don't know why. Something I'd like is just like a Chrysler 300, the old one, like Jay Leno was driving around in. Heck, I think an Edsel will make a cool model. I know it was not much of a car, but pushing a few too many technologies at once. I think it was John Kitt was mentioning that one of the problems Edsel had was he went and asked the customers what they want. Never ask the customer what they want, because they're going to come up with, you want this, you want that. Oh yeah, we want all that stuff. They don't really know what they want, and you wind up with a bad idea. DeSoto, there you go. Well, you know, some plain Jane cars are extremely popular. The 55 Nomad wagon, and my parents had, I believe it was a 55 or 57 Nomad wagon, and I got a picture of it somewhere. And of course, back then it was just a family car, but today those things are super popular and ridiculously expensive. And 67 Fury, I think the Florida Highway Patrol used to use those. Yeah, Pinto. In my high school years, one of my buddies had a blue Ford Pinto, the Ford Firebomb, probably I think it was a 74. We rode around in that thing all over the place, and we knew about the danger, but you know, it just I mean, my grandma had a Maverick, and to think of a Maverick as a muscle car was a joke to me, but it was. It the right engine and everything in it. Heck, the original Mustang was just supposed to be a grocery getter. I just finished an Edsel and rusted it. Okay. Edsels, they come pre-rusted, right from the factory. Well, not to get into the world situation, but we've all, I'm sure, seen the same stuff in the news about the things the privileged classes have done while they're closing down everything. Yet the model companies are one of the few industries that have actually gotten something positive out of this. And I'm like, you know, nobody, not even they, want to see the current situation just so they can make some extra money. But you take your wins where you can find them. You know, take the silver lining that came on the dark cloud. And been wanting to do a diary after. That would be an interesting one. Yes, it's a testament to his airmanship that he covered 300 miles open ocean with one eye inoperative, one eye blurry, all the instruments shot out, basically navigating by the sunset, I think. But and windshield shot out. That was pretty impressive. Bet he didn't make that mistake twice. Yeah, that's true. And of course, Anshalak's talking about the Mustang. Yeah, the people I knew that had him had gotten him as the wife car, and you know, so when they first came out, I was just a tyke, you know, 3, 4 year, 5 years old. But the first ones I saw, I think, were the little grocery getter models, and then it's ironic though. I have a real thing about proportion of cars. I think some of the most beautiful cars are like the mid '60s GTOs and Impalas. I never cared that much for the Monte Carlos because I thought the front end was too long. It just made it look off. Yet, my favorite Mustang's the Mach 1, which has the long front end on it. Just something about that car that I really liked, and I need to get a Model 1. A friend of ours Doyle had a beautiful blue Mach 1, and I got to ride around the back seat as a kid, and I just thought, man, we're riding around a Mustang. We're so cool. And, of course, we're also getting to ride with teenagers, which automatically made you cool when you're 10 years old. Dodge Diplomat with the police package. Okay, since you brought that up, Ray, first off, the Dodge Diplomat may be the most police car-looking police car ever made because it was just a box. I mean, it looked like when you think police car. But when I was a brand new rookie police officer, we had just gotten Caprices, and there were some Crown Vics on the horizon. But we still had some old fleet cars from the early 80s that were left over, including Chevy Celebrities, K-Cars, and a couple of ancient Dodge Diplomats. And my training officer insisted that I go out with him one night in each one of these things just to see what they used to have to put up with. Now, well, the Celebrity was a Celebrity, and you can figure that out. And when I got cut loose on my own to train, they gave me a Celebrity. They weren't going to give a rookie cop a brand new car. So I got the dog of the fleet. So, and I actually got my first high-speed chasing one. And caught the guys because they wrecked. Because they were driving a 74 Toyota Corolla. So, pretty much regular street traffic was passing us. But anyway, so where when we went out in the K car, oh God, it puts the capital G on gutless. I mean, a little four banger in it. And, but then the Diplomat, I thought, all right, this looks like a police car. I got in Florida. That car would not go 45 miles an hour. And it wasn't because it was a Diplomat. It was because apparently, I think it was running on 3 cylinders. And I was like, why is this thing even still in the fleet? And it was just old and worn out. Now, it looked cool, but it was absolutely run. And I'm sure when it was a newer car, it was probably okay. And the worst part was we had 4 lights in the light bar. We had 2 that just pulsed, and the end ones rotated. And when I hit the lights, we were doing a DUI stop, and one of them going, eek, 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 and the other one goes, and just stops. So I have 2 stationary lights on one side, 1 stationary light on the other, and one that's real slowly making this loud squeaking noise as it rotates. So this car should have been in the junkyard 2 years before. And if that person had just run away, we never would have caught him. They did. Thank God they didn't know, because I had it on the floor and we were going like 47 miles an hour. And that's my Dodge Diplomat story. Not knocking the Diplomat. It was a fine car. That particular one was just ready for the junkyard. Now when I finally got my 86 Caprice, that was when I had a real police car. And that puppy would move. And so would those 88 Crown Vics. They were fast too. I was surprised, even dragging that light bar. Yeah, I suppose he did, but and when I was in the Army, the K cars, the military police got K cars, and at least they looked like police cars because, kid you not, before they had the K car, Fort Campbell, Kentucky's military police cars were Mavericks. I don't care how big the light bar, I don't care how big the badge on the door, you put police equipment on a Maverick and you just can't help but giggle. And they weren't the hopped up Mavericks either. But when they got the K cars, at least they had the boxy police car look. My problem was the light bars were so big on them, like Mickey Mouse ears. But it was, the K car was, for what it was made for, it was a fine little car. But everybody tried to use them for stuff they just weren't intended for. K car make a nice little kit. I'm sure they make a kit of one. Somebody's got to. But I think the car that's kind of the unsung hero that everyone kind of snickers at, but it helped build an industry, believe it or not, was the Volkswagen Beetle, which you guys know is a Porsche design. It was the car that really put Germany on the map after the war. I know they were invented before the war, but when I was a kid, those bloody things were everywhere. Them and the little Honda 65, technically a motorcycle, a little more than a glorified moped, but it was, I used to see Volkswagen Beetles, and Honda 65s came in 2 colors, red or black. And those things were everywhere in the 60s. I think commercial pre-built model. Yeah, I kind of have to agree with you on that. I even have a bunch of those myself. Airliners are deceptively hard to build because everything has to be clean and straight line, long straight lines. To get an airliner model look good is no small task. And here for 20, 30, 40 bucks, you can buy this beautiful one. My wife got me a Pacific Miniatures through our company store of the plane I fly, the Embraer 190, and the thing's flawless. It's beautiful, and since it's resin, it's relatively rugged. Not sure what that is, but I'll show it. One of the things about airliner kits is those are the kinds of things people like to put on their desk. So you really need something pretty rugged if you actually build one and put it out on your desktop. Somebody's going to break it because we all know how fragile kit models are. That's kind of their I was going to say their weak point, but it literally is the weak point. Oh, they never made a kit. Okay. This question's to everybody. Does anyone know of anyone that makes a kit model of the K car? Yeah, Charles, the mid to late 70s, American automobile quality had pretty much become a joke, which is kind of what led to the Saturn. There were also Volkswagen engines were real popular for home built aircraft. In fact, they had probably the simplest home built airplane ever made called the Volksplane, which was designed to use a Volkswagen engine. And it was a little wooden box with little fat wooden wings and fabric wings on it and a Volkswagen engine. And it was a really popular home built airplane. And the Beetles were not only indestructible, you could just do anything with them. I mean, they were so easy to work on. They didn't have, they were air cooled, so they didn't have a radiator, and they weren't terribly powerful. I can remember one thing could get up the hill, but I still remember the little buzzy sound, noise they make. But my gosh, they had a commercial that said, the two houses in the suburbs, Mr. Smith bought a brand new sedan. It's like a Ford, and he paid $3,500. Okay, and Mr. Jones bought a Volkswagen, and for the same money, he also bought a new refrigerator, a new washer, a new dryer, a new this, a new stereo, and some all these appliances into the house, because the Beetle was literally half or less than half the price of the standard American sedan. Of course, you got a tiny little car, but I don't know that people particularly liked the Beetles so much as they, yeah, it really was a really cool wagon. So the thing, Volkswagen thing was basically a cool wagon with a changed front end. I think what it was is that not so much that people fell in love with the thing until Herbie the Love Bug came out, that's right. But it was more along the lines of it was just so affordable that anyone could have one. And that's, to quote Malcolm, that's not nothing for all you Firefly fans. My sister had a Gremlin, and which is what it was, a Hornet with the trunk removed, and surprisingly popular car. But it used to make fun of itself in the TV commercials, where the lady be trying to sell it, and the guy going, "Hey, where's the rest of your car, lady?" And now Volkswagens are $80,000. The Passat and those other things, my God, they are no longer a people's car, unless the people are upper middle class. Yeah, my worst German accent. Yeah, and how many Dune? Oh God, all the Dune buggies had VW engines in them, and VWs got turned into Dune buggies. Like I say, you could do any. This thing was so simple, you could do anything to it. The X cars. I'm not sure what you mean. You mean the ones with the X frames, or are you talking about something else with the X cars? Because I do know the cars that had the X frames on them were extremely dangerous because they had no side protection. Oh, the Morris Minor. Oh, there's something I haven't heard in a while. The AMC Pacer. Yeah, one of the problems that the Pacer had was that the interiors decayed very quickly because of all that glass. If you parked them outside, literally the sun destroyed the interiors within 2 years. They weren't. It's funny. The Pacer was an extremely good selling car for like 2 years, and then it just kneecapped, just zoom like that, and dropped off into nothing. And citations. Yeah, those cars weren't any particular. I remember the mid-'70s, Monte Carlos, the real big front ends on them, and it's just not a good time for cars. Yeah, everybody. Now I gotta admit, we had a family nearby that we used to go out with that they always had Audis and Volkswagens. They only bought German, and they had a VW bus, and I got to admit, I always got a kick out of those things. And I know they're not terribly well powered. They're the old ones with the windshields that would open up and everything. Who's a big collector of the VW buses, including the 23 window one, is Gabriel Iglesias, the comedian, the Fluffy. Gabriel's a huge fan of those things. He's got a bunch of them. He even has they did some TV show. They have they make these wild fish tanks, and they turned one into a giant fish tank in his house. Yeah. Yeah, the oil crisis is part of what killed Detroit. I agree, but I'm going to tell you something else that killed Detroit, in my humble opinion. I think, like most of us who were all around back then, was arrogance. They were so. After World War II, we're about the only major producing country that was not, it had really been untouched by the war. All of our factories were in shape. We had the manpower and everything. So we were making cars that were going all over the world because we could. And this went on for 10, 15, 20 years, but eventually, the world fixed itself and other countries started making cars. And then countries like Japan and everything, of course, their first cars were disasters, but they learned. And, you know, the Germans started making really good stuff. And we just got, Detroit got lazy. Oh, thank you, baby. Oh, well, guys, I just had something show up in the mail. So let's do a quick unboxing. See, who is this from? Get my other glasses on. Where are my other glasses? So I can read. These are my these are my computer long glasses. These are my reader trifocals. Let's see. Oh, it's from TD. This is from Tom Daniel. Oh, Tom, that's beautiful. Some Tom's personal artwork. Oops. And I have to go get these framed. Let's see, there should be a note in here somewhere. Let me just... Didn't see this coming, did I? Midnight Flight. It's a poem. Oh, TD did the cover of a book called Tailspin, and he said he'd send me some of his artwork from the cover of it. And, for those who don't know, the famous kit designer Tom Daniel was in the Navy Reserve and got activated during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And one of the things he did, he was what they call a madman, a sonar operator on an S2F tracker known as the Stoof, S2F, Stoof. And he did artwork of his own airplane, 33. And so if you've ever built a Tom Daniel model, this is what he flew when he was a crewman on when he was in the Navy during the Cuban Missile Crisis, hunting Russian subs. That's beautiful. Thank you, TD. I have to send him a thank you note for that. I have to get those framed. And don't forget, if you guys like Tom's art, Tom Daniel, fine art. He still sells stuff online. Thank you, TD. Thank you very much. So, I'm looking to see, does anybody know of a Kit K car that's made? Yes, the Mustang's a racer. It's, or at least a civilian one. Actually, I don't think it's a racer because it's got, fuel tanks on it. A racer would not have external stores. Although it's highly modified, you notice the tail on it is, not a standard Mustang tail. And those are oversized drop tanks, so let's see. Don't have any information on it. But beautiful. The second is the Griffin. Oh. Now I have a research project to do today. Hey, Gabriel. I can't believe no one makes a kit model of the K car. These little Chrysler squared off compact cars, little K cars, they were everywhere for the longest time. Hey, Burning Bee. So, I'm just reading the comments real quick here. A VW Beetle with a turbo 911 engine in it. That's called cheating. Fake out. Let me get a Old clunker like that, put a big motor in it. Oh. Yeah, okay. Okay. Let's see. I have an image if I can find it. You guys are talking about the K car going together almost like a model. Let me see if I can find it. There was a meme a little bit about that. Ah, here it is. There's one for you. Yeah, I'm sure it is a drag car. You'd have a little trouble keeping the front end on the ground with that thing. Well, that's odd. You see, that seems like the kind of car people would be would love to build because so many people had them and stuff. The popularity of a vehicle is only partly because of how exotic it is. A lot of times, the popularity is because of how common it is that people can relate to it. And I'm pretty sure that you can buy models of a lot of cars that are in production are particularly exciting. You would think something as K car available in 143 scale. Well, that's interesting. Okay, William, who makes it? But oh, if you really want to go down a rabbit hole someday, start trying to build every version of the Sherman tank that's out there. That'll keep you busy for a while. Oh, it's a die cast. Okay. Well, it could also be that Chrysler may not have released it because you have to get permission to do those things, and they may want a commission on it or something. There's got to be a reason it hasn't been put in production because, good heavens, they put so many other stuff into production that are, there are a lot of quote unquote ordinary cars out there that they make models of, and ordinary aircraft too. I mean, think about it. Airliners make up a reasonable. Pretty much every airliner is made, and they're hardly exciting. Like compared to a fighter or something. Yeah, a fire alarm. Good lord. Well, you can find just about anything in resin. The Anagrand or Fantastic Plastic or Model Master. There's okay, that's probably what it is then. That sounds right because you would use those big fuel tanks for a transcontinental race. So I'm going to have to go look that up. But Chuck Lyford, okay. 19th, I'll bet you that's what it is. Neo Scale Models Resin 143K car. All right, there we go. Wasn't the Dodge Shadow basically a K car with a new body? Possibly. Sounds right. You guys, I remember getting in at a dealership in 1982 or 83, the first year the Berlinetta Camaro came out. And, what we think of, the sleek body Camaros that got away from the 60s, 70s design. And I saw that thing and I thought I was in a bloody spaceship. And that's actually a car I should get a model of. But I'll talk about cars. I think when I'm done with the current project, I'm going to go build that truck. I mean, the Polera with the Hemi that was given to me because I've been thinking about those. And I'm actually kind of interested to see how it'll look displayed with the engine beside it because I've never actually done that, but that's my plan. And I want to make it look pretty. Okay. Well, what else you guys have on the agenda? Questions, concerns, additions? Saw Ferrari wants part-time, but tag baby Ferrari. Yeah, I wonder if anybody makes a model of the Bricklin. You guys remember that? Was it like the hard plastic car, the Bricklin, made out of brick? I think was it Canada they were going to make those things. I remember seeing it. I remember somebody in my hometown had one, And I know the car, it was only in business like 2 years and didn't do well, but it was a cool looking car. You got to give them credit for that. Okay. Chuck Livers was the Bard All Special. Fine, now I have to look it up. Wow. Okay. That is not the one in the picture, but it's definitely a souped up Mustang. Oop, whole bunch of stuff just loaded at one time. Take a sec to read it here. Back to landscaping. Don't do it, William. Don't do it. The Impalas with the convex rear. Oh yeah. So was a 75 the Moonback Corvettes had the 25th edition, I think it was, had that big curved back window on them. Oh, look cool. Manufactured in New Brunswick, one on display in Ottawa. Okay. Oh God, Death Race 2000. It shows what you can do with a Volkswagen. We saw that old one with David Carradine recently. I mean, oh man, you talk about the best. Was that Roger Corman? I mean, that is everything a B movie is supposed to be. And then we saw the new one, which was much bigger budget, better done. I mean, I don't, but now you're talking about the Death Race 2000 from the 70s, the Corman flick, or are you talking about the new one that was, where they're in the prison with it? I mean, both of them were exactly what they were supposed to. The Statham film is obviously much more serious and dark because it's what it's supposed to be. But the old one, man, I mean, you look at it, the camp behind it, and it just, you watch that, you just take it for what it's worth, enjoy your popcorn, and just laugh. That movie was so much fun for just that. It was fun for all the wrong reasons. And I make Death Race cars from Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars. Yeah, I think that's what they made the cars in the movie from. I'm like, look what you can do with a Volkswagen. I just kept saying that to my wife. Oh, look at it, it's a freaking Volkswagen. Well, the one it's made like a V1 with the engine on top. It's like, God. Al Stallone probably wishes that film had never come out. Yes, Sylvester Stallone's in it if you haven't seen it. In like his first role. And it is, oh God. Oh, I'm going to have to get a Maverick. I have to get a four-door like my grandma had. Paint it yellow with the white top. I don't think they do still publish them. At least I haven't seen them either. Model Master paints are going away because Rust-Oleum bought out Testers, and they just found that they don't do it. You have to remember this is Rust-Oleum who makes paint by the container ship load, and they looked at like this. These numbers don't make any sense. It's just not worth it. So if you see Model Master paints and you're a fan of them, which I am, I recommend you just go ahead and grab them. I don't care if it's purple. And by the way, you put Shelby in front of everything and it becomes a serious case of badassery. I mean, you could have a Shelby Volkswagen, it'd be a monster. Mercury Comet, oh yeah. Yes, Johan did make a Maverick kit. In fact, they made it the year it came out. And I think they were the first model maker to make it, if I remember correctly. I wish we could choose the press that way. Yeah. Oh, man, don't even get me started on that. Wonder if any... Oh, Volga, Pavita, that'd be interesting. I'm sure somebody out there's got to be making a lot of... The only aviation hobby magazines I get are I get Fine Scale Modeler, and because I fly RCs, I also get Model Aviation. And I was getting Air and Space, so these are really the only two that I get: Fine Scale Modeler and Model Aviation. But I was getting the Smithsonian Air and Space. I think my membership may have lapsed, and I love that magazine. I also get Airline Pilot because I'm an ALPA, Airline Pilots Association. Oh, the Tiger Sunbeam. Yeah, that thing's very popular. Where did I see? I think I bumped into a James May special on those or something somewhere. I remember recently watching something about those cars. Yeah, yeah. I heard that the rumor was that Model Master was the only one they were putting out of production. And again, I'm getting all this second and third hand. So container fell off a ship and headed back to Japan. Great. I see Godzilla's on the loose again. AMT had the Sunbeam Tiger kit. Yeah, gotta be honest. I mean, when I built those when I built those two GTOs, I noticed a distinct, not horrible, but there was a difference in quality between MPC and AMT, and I think AMT had the edge. Not that I mean I wouldn't hesitate to buy an MPC if they made a kit I like. Their quality's okay, but I really think AMT had a little bit of an upper hand on them overall on fit and finish. Again, not day and night. Just I just thought it was a little bit better designed, a little bit better executed, and I'm talking 5-10% better, not day and night. Sunbeam Alpine was unreliable. Well, you know what about unreliable? A friend of mine had the same guy that had the Pinto later got a Spitfire, the car, and boy, that put his mechanics kid through school. '61 Catalina 420 by AMT. Okay, one of my bestest buddies had a '64 Catalina that he bought secondhand as a kid, and I actually thought about getting a real one, '64 or '65. Not that I have a problem with a '61. Was that what Max Smart was driving? Was that a Sunbeam Alpine? Huh. I should have known that. All right. We're going to be wrapping up here in just a little bit. So while you guys are talking cars, what is your favorite? And it doesn't have to be like a specialty car like the Matmobile. What is your favorite car from a television show or a movie or, Hollywood or media? Like Smart Sunbeam or what was that little thing that the prisoner drove? Number six. God, a weird little MG or something at the opening scenes of that old British TV show, The Prisoner. Wicked cool little car. Mr. Bean's Mini Cooper? Okay, why not? TMC broadcast what I thought the original, because if it was made in '54, it was, or '53. The Mannix Roadster, okay, Lotus. Oh, lost as Lotus, yeah. Black Corvette from the '80s show Stingray, yeah. Super 7, Chevy Electric Lucas by the Prince of Darkness. Prince of Darkness, Lucas. Yeah, but you could replace that Lucas thing with the Joe Hunt Magneto system on a lot of their motorcycles and stuff. The Rockford Camaro. No, Rockford had a Firebird, I think, didn't he? MG kit car, the character built it himself. Oh, really? Oh, okay. I didn't recognize it. That would explain why I didn't recognize it. The Magnum Ferrari, there you go. Oh, it was a Mini Moke. Okay. Are you guys talking about the same car from The Prisoner? Gotta go look that up. Oh, Basil Fawlty's car. Peter Gunn's 57 Fury, yeah. Yeah, I thought Rockford drove a Firebird. And, the cool cars from UFO, that's right. Yeah, Straker and Foster's cars. And according to Bishop, he says that contrary to what you see in the show, those doors were completely manual, and you had to have a guy off camera lifting it up, that they didn't go up automatically. They were just bodies. And Monkey's Mobile would definitely be on my list, although I think the Supernatural Impala would probably be my favorite. Green Hornet's Black Beauty. Yeah, you do know that Andy Anchis, and one of his co-workers at Aurora made the 1/10 scale Green Hornet Black Beauty and convertible that were using the famous rotation scene, where when he hits the button and it rotates and there's the Black Beauty. Those were 1/10 scale models that Andy and his partner made. Mostly out of wood. Morris Marina. Starsky and Hutch, yeah. The Torino from Starsky and Hutch. God, I remember those things. Everybody wanted one of those. Any James Bond car, Man from Uncle Coyote. Well, the UFO cars were built on Granadas, yeah. Batmobile TV version. Munster's Dragula, TD, the same person who, the same Tom Daniel, same person who did this beautiful artwork and all of those famous monogram kits, is the one who designed Dragula and the Munstermobile, both of them. Barris built them, but TD did all of the design work and drew them. He did it very quickly, like in just a day or two, and then got it to Barris, and never got any credit for it. And for anybody who knows anything about Barris, he was not big on sharing credit. And yeah, Baby's hard to beat. You know, he's kind of her own character. Nah, man, Australian Ford Falcon. Ah, Kowalski, you out there? Hey, Kowalski, can you hear me? Never quite got that movie. I mean, it was one of those movies that you kind of couldn't not enjoy. You just, well, you know, it was a highway, the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, you know, and it's when trucker movies were big and everybody was like turning, government trying to slow us all down, which Americans can't stand. Ford Granada looks like a Mercedes if you're legally blind. Oh, that's good. Yellow One Rob. The Trabant. I'm a Trebby. I'm going to miss my Trebby. Ooh, do you guys remember a short-lived TV show where they drove around a Stutz Bearcat called the Bearcats? Oh, ML's Deathmobile. Ramming speed! Convoy. It was the dark of the moon on the 6th of June in a Kenworth hauling logs. Cab over Pete with a reefer on and a Jimmy hauling hogs. Yes, I know Convoy. Crazy Mary Dirty. Yeah. Beach to it hard. Ramming speed. Carpe diem. I'm scratching. I'm glad you're having a good time. Yeah, the Charger. I like the Charger. If any of you guys ever watched the TV show Burn Notice, that black Charger he had there was pretty awesome. They had several of them, and one of them, when all that stuff was down in Miami where they shot the show, and I saw the Charger, one of the Chargers go up for sale, but it wasn't the hero car. It was one of them that they kept burning and blowing up and stuff. So it was a complete car with no interior. But I think it was drivable or close to it. It was complete, but just no interior. They wanted about $8,000 for it, and I thought about it just because it was a show car. And I can, but nah, I'm not enough of a mechanic to put that thing back together. It needs full resto. Oh, Duel, actually, in the movie Duel, if I'm not mistaken, that truck was an Oldsmobile. And yes, Oldsmobile, I think it was Olds, did make tractor trailers back in the day. And the thing I like about Burn Notice was the voiceover narrations, and they were usually pretty well researched. Oh Oh yeah, Vic Morrow, last of the tough guys. Him and Aldo Ray, who by the way is who Lieutenant Aldo Raines was patterned after in Inglourious Bastards. Um, Generally, I actually have video of my co-first officer in a replica of the General Lee at one of the car places we went to on an overnight, and it had the horn, and he's from Tennessee, so he freaking loved it. Oh, BJ and the Bear, yeah, the Kenworth. Doctor, my eyes have seen the years and the slow parade of tears without crying. Harold, oh my God, Harold Maude. Now we are getting out there, guys. Excellent, excellent, Frank. I like that. Duel was a Peterbilt? Okay, hold on just a second. I was looking this up a while back from, maybe it was, but it was much older. There's a picture of it. Let's see. I thought it said Olds. You're right, 1960 Peterbilt. I stand corrected. Now, where did I get the idea Oldsmobile? Snout-nosed Peterbilt. Yep, you're right. I stand corrected, Peterbilt. Where did I get Oldsmobile from? Must have been conflated it with something else I was reading. Nope. Yeah, I just checked it. It's a Peterbilt. Although I admit that version of Peterbilt does look like a Mack. Oh, then came Bronson and his Harley. It was a Sportster, yeah. And the only guy that made a Sportster look cool. And I had a Sportster. That was my first motorcycle. It was a 74 flat tracker, which had the shift on the other side. Had the right hand shift because it was made to go left turns. Columbo's little Peugeot. You know, they actually, when they did the movie Columbo, they actually found that original car, and you would think it had been preserved by a collector, but somebody just got it. It was like rotting away in a backyard, and they found it and dressed it up for the movie. You know, Gabriel, that's a great idea. They should. And hey, Dennis Weaver, you know, he went in a K car. What was Weaver driving? Oh gosh, I can see it and I can't remember it. He wasn't a Diplomat. Anyway, that would actually make a good set, a good box set. In fact, you know, the problem is, unless they're in production, you have to find somebody that already has the molds, because cutting the molds for them would be really expensive. But that's something that might be suggested. I might send an email to Pete Vetri and see if that's something that Atlantis might be thinking about doing. Of course, they probably have to get the rights to do it. If they don't have to get the rights to do it, if they identified it as the movie Duel, but if they just put the two models together, they get the rights to the model. But believe it or not, you got to get the rights to that stuff. You can't just do it. And unfortunately, apparently recently, a few companies have become savvy to that and have gotten themselves in the habit of licensing the names to stuff that sometimes they didn't even build. And now, if you want to make a model, you're going to give us $5 or $50,000 or whatever. It was Dodge Dart. Okay, yeah, Dart. That's it. They were Valiant. Yeah, gotcha. My brother had a Swinger, had the Slant 6 in it, which is basically the same car. I can ask him. You guys. By the way, just as a note, you can go to the Atlantis website and just say, "Hey, look, I've got an idea. If you were going to make this, I'd buy them." Because, if a bunch of people say, "Hey, look, we'd like this car. We'd like this car." Maybe not. I don't know. If they start getting bombed with requests, they probably, they'll probably go, "Max, what are you doing? Stop it." They'll never know it was me. Of course, they got a lot going on. So, okay, the car I had in high school, when my parents got married back in the 50s, my dad sort of jokingly promised my mom a Cadillac someday. Okay, well, when I was in high school, mom needed a new car, and the used car lot, some admiral's wife, some two-star admiral's wife, had traded in her 67 Cadillac Calais. Now, it's the entry-level Cadillac. It's a two-door, but it's a gunboat. I mean, it's
It's a 67 Cadillac. Pretty much they didn't make anything late 60s. That wasn't a gunboat. But this Ticonderoga class beast was there for a good deal. My dad just got it, took it to my mom, and here, promise you Cadillac someday. Here you go. Car was freaking immaculate. Still had the 2-star base sticker with the 2 stars on it. And if I went on a military base, I'd read a salute. Well, the car would. Anyway, so mom drove it a while and didn't particularly care for it. So I got to drive to school a couple of times. And let's just say it made me popular. But one day, you're talking about, what, 4,000 pounds of car? Nice and wet outside, going, light changes suddenly, hit the brake, it just rained, and she just, like she was on rails, just slid right out in the middle of that intersection, did a nice 90-degree turn and came to a stop. Scared the living bejesus out of everybody. Fortunately, nobody got in the intersection, nothing happened. But I was like, you drive those old gunboats, you start breaking way back yonder. But God, it was like, you could go 100 miles an hour down a dirt road and had that flow-o-matic suspension. That car was from another world, another time. From a more elegant era, of a more civilized time. Yeah, the Slant 6 is pretty freaking bulletproof. Not the fastest thing around, but by gosh, you know, if I'm not mistaken, I think a Slant 6 is what the white half track, the M3 half track. I think it had a Slant 6 in it, or something close to it. It just inline 6. I think it was a Slant 6. Hello, Eduardo. ¿Cómo estás? Well, you're from Brazil. You speak Portuguese, not Spanish. Sorry. I did kill my Slant 6, but it wasn't easy. Hood ornaments. I was always leery of any car that had a hood ornament with a crosshair. Because I think, hey, you know what that's for? That's for aiming at motorcyclists. That's what that's for. Especially when I was on a motorcycle. I was like, I know what that crosshair on your hood is for. You're not fooling me, old lady. Nothing more dangerous than an 80-year-old woman who was looking under the steering wheel to drive going 28 miles an hour in a 5,000-pound Cadillac. I'm just reading the comments here for a second. Okay, well, guys, we're pushing the 2-hour mark here. So, my Buick had a plane. Oh, yeah, that's right. ABS 4,000 pounds slid. ABS does not equal retro rockets. That's what they should have had, by God. 45 whopping horsepower. I remember there was a couple old half tracks at a local junkyard, and wasn't much left of them. We flipped up the hood on one of them, and we looked at the 6-cylinder. Just like, that's it, man. That's it. 145 horsepower. That sounds better. But I was like, wow. I mean, they were simple. And just a 5-ton truck with armor plate on it. Fly down the white line. That should be a song. That would have made a great song by the Eagles. Fly down the white line. Well, all right, guys. I gotta go get things done, get back to snapping pictures and stuff, and get back to work. Hope you guys are having a great holiday season. And I'm gonna sign off here, but I'm going to leave the thing running in case you guys want to chat with each other for a little while. I want to thank you for tuning in. Hope you had a good time. And you guys, we'll see you out in the world. And I'll see if I can't get some content on them. Real quick, right now they don't have me scheduled to fly for a little while, so I'll probably be able to put out a little bit of content over the week. So, guys, take care. Model on.